Today, we're going to go ahead and rehash prior games with San Padre by Night, a custom game I've created for Vampire the Masquerade. It involves a custom city and has a lot of interesting things going on. All right, well, just to start out, let's see. Our players were first invited to a party. And we'll go ahead and introduce the cast, I guess. First, we have Brody Chompy. He's a rich guy, has a bunch of resources, Ventrue by definition, and he is part of the founding portions of San Padre when they started, when it was Camarilla conquered and back in the 80s. Late 70s, early 80s. He's our resident Ventrue, and he was joined by a guest named Jack Hers, who is another Ventrue, who is fleeing a city because he is quite a successful gambler, and he outgambled the prince of another city called Phantom City in my fictional universe, and fled to the town. Then we have Michelle. She's a Tremere, played by Charlie, and she is quite bookish. She has a novel that she's always reading a little bit about, in the terms of that she's looking for sorry, I'm checking audio settings too. I apologize about that. Yeah, so she's quite bookish. She's searching for knowledge as a Tremere. She's a member of House Karna, and she really wants to meet her uncle, Michael Valkin, who is another member of a fictional city, Atlantis City. You can imagine that being basically Seattle. All right, we have Josiah, a Caitiff, a mysterious, dark creature that nobody knows much about. Just that he's a brand new. He's a vampire that's been around the city for about 5 years now, and hasn't really been brought himself to be known because he is indeed a Caitiff. And then last but not least, we have Waylon Cash. He's a Gangrel. And he really just wants to seek out his own peace, his own quiet. He's a vegetarian vampire, meaning he drinks only animal blood, as opposed to eating, or vegan vampire, because he eats the vitae of animals and prefers them to that of mortals. Yeah, the group's clan tenets are pretty simple on here. Let's see. We'll go ahead and share this information. There's the clan tenets. So they shall not harm the innocent. The guilty should suffer. Respect others and demand respect. And they have a medium area of 8 blocks standing in the Sur Playa and Little Playa districts of San Padre. Chase, Lean, and Portillion all are going to turn out to be quite helpful for them at some point. And just to show you the city, I know we've got this backdrop here. I'll go ahead and pull this off to the side. All right. Come back over here and get an image of San Padre. conquer the screen here with the San Padre City map. There we go. This is a city. It's got several districts. We have a party district, the Supply district, down here as you see my arrow. Little Padre, and their domain as it stands, a little area, about 8 blocks. This is about 1 million people. A central business district. It involves several different businesses, that sort of thing, auction houses. The industrial district, which has a seafood plant, dry docks, and the airport. We have the residential districts, and I didn't individualize them yet. May be happening soon in the future, but basically each individual areas that you can visit. The fossil district San Padre's history is based off of oil, so a lot of their money comes from the oil. So there's not just the oil factory over there, the oil refinery, which is a big part of it, but also they have the bus yard, the train yard. They have basically stables of industry. And then Norte Playa. Norte Playa is where there is a lot of businesses, bar districts, that sort of thing. Same as Sur Playa, which is the entertainment district they're at. And Chompy has, Brody Chompy has a club in here as well, where he has some ladies that dance called Dusk. All right, we'll go ahead and pop that off and cancel out Norte Playa's picture. Sur Playa, if you'd like to see a picture of it, more of an older part of town, kind of junky. These pictures are borrowed from online, aka stolen, but please forgive me. Ooh, and I probably gotta fix that too. Alright, so we start our story in Sur Playa. The players received a phone call. Let's see. The link should be there. There it is. Okay. So there is a link we can click, which is poorly situated. We have to fix that. It shows all the different parts of Sur Playa. All right. So our players started our coterie. Started in Chompy's Bar. Chompy's Bar is actually a location where several parties happen. It's called the Shack. We'll go ahead and pull up a description of that. We can do that relatively easily. And Shack's a good old boys club. It's a good old American club. And I have to pull up individually then. Anyways, so you can, if you're at the Shack, you know you're having a good time because it's always going to have a proud populace. It involves actually some people who are military, that sort of thing, and definitely hosts to them, involving three chairs devoted to servicemen at all times. And overall, plays a little bit of R&B and hip-hop club music to keep people happy, dancing around. Let's see. But they started there. Michelle ended up, they reached an invitation to a party that night. This party was Elysium, which is a vampire term or kindred term for a place where kindred can go safely and not have to worry about being assaulted by your sires and that sort of thing, which is a pretty common issue. Kindred are always out to take care of each other, take each other out, and This is one of the few parties the prince had, but it's more of a mandatory meeting than it was a party. They met several individuals. They met Medusa, and she is the resident Nosferatu of the town. And also the Primogen, which is basically, you can think of it as senator for the Nosferatu. She represents them in town. There were both Jack and Waylon and Josiah were required to introduce themselves in front of the prince, which is Eduardo de Leon, a conquistador from the 15th century when they were first conquering America, and he's now taking control of the city. They also met characters like Hannah James, who gave Michelle Valkin a reading, a premonition that she'd had about the girl. And of course, Michelle is knowledgeable enough to know that she is not to dismiss such things easily, as it's a fairly rare occasion that they give away such knowledge freely. I'll go to one more thing. Just going to put this back in the back. All right. Sorry, I'm just doing the stream setup recently, so I'm also modifying some things here. But this is a test run. All right, thank you very much. All right, next thing. So just going on with what they had told us here, what had happened in the event. So the leader of the Tremere Chantry had cornered. We have a couple more characters that were there. Let's see. Other notable people of interest: Victoria Smythe, or Smith, however you would like to pronounce it, and she is a Gangrel sheriff, not sheriff, but scourge. She hunts down all the people who have bred more vampires without permission. And last but not least, we certainly have Giuseppe, the kind of leader of the Bruja, the Primogen of the Bruja, a violent group of vampires that at one time was prized for its capabilities fighting, and also for their warrior poet status almost. So we have our cast that was there, as well as the other Primogen of the city, and Bob Jones as sheriff, that I haven't gotten around to put the picture up yet, but he will be up soon. And, well, Michelle would like nothing more than to read her books and study. She couldn't get away from the prying eyes of her clan's Primogen, who essentially told her, being a follower of Karna, she was not welcome in the Tremere Chantry per se. She would have to renounce her house and choose instead to follow the House Tremere instead, of which she didn't take too kindly to. She tried to avoid introducing herself to the prince until later, in which case the prince declared that, or spoke with the coterie, and in response, for them to maintain their domain, he asked a boon of them. That boon was to present and create 2 blood gems at his request. Whenever he requested them, he expected them to be made for him, with the understanding that, of course, such things take time. These gems track people and are the non-technological method of tracking for Kindred. And the coterie introduced their new members They went around, got, again, the premonition. They met some people, chatted, and basically did stuff amongst themselves as Kindred do. The night was coming close to a end, and Eduardo came down and said to his coterie as a kind of, or to his guests as kind of a last minute, goodbye before the night ended, that he was declaring a blood hunt that night. The blood hunt means that that the Kindred will have the rights to attack any individual and eat them down to their last breath. So basically, consume their soul. It's and bring them down to nothing as far as the vampires are concerned. And he declared it on a Gangrel named Bruno that was in breach of the masquerade, in that Eduardo showed a video of Bruno being shot by a mortal, and then frenzying and taking out the mortal, and then fleeing the scene. At which point, Giuseppe, quite angry about this, declared that it was bullshit, that this is not acceptable, that Eduardo is indeed a selective prince and chooses to support only those who he supports, and not necessarily everybody equally and fairly. And he and his coterie, who were hanging around a bar, surrounded the individual, Bruno, as he was being escorted out, and declared that anybody could come and try for him. Of course, the blood hunt, he wanted to directly challenge the blood hunt. However, that he was going to demand, or that he was going to defend his quarry as best as possible against them. Giuseppe being a primogen and quite a formidable foe for even the most powerful vampire of the city, was not taken lightly. All right, so then we go into the next phase. Basically, the characters had a chance to rest. The coterie relaxed, went to the shack where Brody Chompy and company had their meeting, and then they talked about some things. They talked about what had happened the night, that basically the city was a powder keg. It was dangerous to be in, and that they could only hope things got better, and that try to decide which side they were on. Brody Chompy, being on the side of the power hungry, determined that he may very well be on the side of the most powerful, and kind of approved of Eduardo's methods. Thought he was on all rights, although he hadn't quite talked to the primogen of the clan, of Ventrue, for the house, which was Maximilian, and he would yet have to talk to him about it. But basically, they had some discussion amongst the group, and then they called it a night. That was the end of chapter 1. There were a few other things that happened, but that's the meat of it. We're just glazing over the final details. Then we go to chapter 2. We're in chapter 2.5 right now. The players are all doing their own thing, and one moment. Thank you for your patience. The players were all battling, or talking about out amongst themselves, and read the Current, which is the newspaper or the nightlife paper of the city. So if you can imagine, every city usually has a paper that they have their nightlife stuff happening on, and this was it. And the Current gave a couple stories. One, it talked about the events that happened at the party, that Eduardo had declared a blood hunt, and it talked about it in code, as is the way of the Current. It doesn't discuss anything openly and outright. It just tells it in a code that's most vampires know how to understand and read. Think Thieves Can't if you're a D&D player. But they talked about it. It said, okay, Bruno is under risk, and mentioned a few characters who had been welcomed into the city by name as special guests. Beyond that, the Ministry, in V20, it's known as the Setites. The Ministry invited people in to their doors, as one might expect with the Ministry, being open to maintaining friendships amongst everybody. They want to adhere to peace usually, but it's at the cost of something. The players and characters do not know yet as what that is. But they can only assume that because the Ministry has been the Anarch source, the lone holdout of the Anarchs, that they're trying to smooth over some of the factions and smooth over the peace a little bit. So they invited everybody to a party. However, prior to that, Waylon Cash had chosen to go to the butcher and pick up some cow's blood to sate his feeding needs. And it took quite a bit to get him sated, about a gallon. However, he was sated to start with. Michelle chose to go to a bookstore, which is also mentioned in the club, called the Chant, and in the Current, called the Chant. And she met her sire there, who opened basically the what would be declared the chantry for the House Karna, the second chantry in town, of which she saw her putting up books and had a discussion with her and gave some blood to have her make it so the door, the wards that were going to be put up would in a way allow her into the chantry, but damage anybody else who tried to enter. After that, we had Brody Chompy, and we had our member, gosh, what was his name? Why am I so bad at this? Let's see, Jack. So we also had Jack, that was part of the